another book review on video. I wasn't sure which language I should do this in because I don't think this book has been translated into English or actually Norwegian. I've read it in Swedish, and of course it was originally written in Finnish, but I figured I'll do it in English, and I'll try to talk a little bit about this author generally, because I've read about half a dozen books by him by now, so yeah. The book is Snablar by the acclaimed Finnish author Arto Paasilinna. It's about an elephant, as you probably see from the cover. I don't remember what the Finnish title was. I probably couldn't pronounce it if I did remember. But it's something to do with the Finnish trunk book, or something like that. I think it translates as. This Swedish title means trunks, but that's also kind of an expression. Yeah. I bought it because I like the author and I love elephants. So, yeah. It's about, basically, it starts at a circus in Finland. I think all of his books are set in Finland, as far as I know. This one is too. Where a baby elephant is born in this circus in Finland. But just after it's born, a new law comes into effect, stating that elephants are now illegal in circuses in Finland. So then, bizarrely, the mother elephant is sold to someone in Germany, and the elephant keeper at the circus keeps the baby and travels to Russia and blah blah blah. And then this woman, the elephant keeper, she wants to bring the elephant back to where she came from, or not where she came from, obviously, since she was born in Finland, but the homeland of her species, Africa. So that becomes like her quest. You know, basically everything that this woman does throughout the book is towards this goal, returning Emilia, as the elephant's name is, to Africa. But there's, of course, a lot of crazy things that happen along the way and a lot of crazy people that they meet. So in that sense, this is a very typical Paasilinna book. And for those of you considering reading something by him, I would recommend The Year of the Hare. Is an absolutely wonderful, wonderful book. Better than this. But his books are similar. There are a lot of small events that happen. Very rarely anything really big. Although in one, there is a Third World War. But apart from that, it's just usually small places, small towns with just various oddballs living in these small towns, and then little things happening that seem very important to the people involved in them, maybe aren't all that important necessarily, but he has a narrow scope. It's rare for a Paasilinna character to lift up their eyes and say, well, this is just a minor event. You know, they're usually very focused on their own thing, and that's true in this book too. The characters don't really care about society at large. They're just doing their thing, which is, again, that's typical Paasilinna, so that's something that you come to expect. And I enjoy that in his books, that you have these little sort of self-contained, that's a good word for him, self-contained societies where people just have crazy problems. Like what to do with your elephant. For instance, in this case, just really weird problems that they usually find very weird solutions for. Kind of thing that it seems to make sense at the time, but for someone on the outside, it may be really, really bizarre. Like Collective Suicide is another book of his that I really, really enjoyed, where if you don't have the stomach to kill yourself on your own, then fill up a bus with other suicidal people and drive it to the North Cape and just drive into the ocean. And you'll all die. Problem solved. So it's kind of typical of Paasilinna in that respect, this book, that it's a self-contained world where people have their own problems that they're very focused on. It is an enjoyable read. it's funny, and it's for someone who has probably a rather stereotypical view of Finnish people. It's enjoyable for the comic relief of our neighbors to the east, that you can imagine that, yeah, Finns are probably like this. They would probably do this. A lot of sort of, yeah, oddballs out in the countryside, especially. The Finnish countryside seems to be peopled exclusively by weirdos. I don't mean to disparage people in the Finnish countryside. It's just that he makes you guys really come off as very strange people. But very entertaining, a fun cast of characters, and an original plot. I generally like it, and I had fun reading it. But I'm gonna have to say something bad about it too, which is, again, very typical of him. And that is that he seems to me to be very lazy when it comes to research. I've noticed this in several books of his. I can't remember the specific things that I noticed in those other books, but I do remember it in this one. This is the most recent one that I read, where there are more than one little thing like this, but especially, which I use as my example, that they have to ride the elephant around the countryside, and they complain at one point, or the Lucia, the elephant keeper, she complains that it's so painful to ride on an elephant's back. Yeah. Extremely painful, because their spine is the highest point of their bodies. So nobody rides on an elephant's back. That's like elephant keeping 101. You ride on their necks. And if you have to ride on their backs, or if they have to carry something on their backs, then you have a howdah that they wear. A saddle for elephants is called a howdah. And you sit in that, but you never sit astraddle an elephant's back. Oh God, I'm in agony thinking about it. And, you know, everybody knows that. Certainly an elephant keeper would know that. And that is something that Paasilinna seems to be doing pretty much in every book that I've read by him. That he, now don't get me wrong, I mean, I love fantasy books, and I can totally accept, you know, altering facts, altering reality, tampering with reality, if you will, for artistic license. Because you definitely have that, but only if it serves a purpose. Like, if you have to change, for instance, geographical facts, you know, or historical facts, or scientific facts, whatever, in order to make something work in your story. You know, if X didn't happen, then Y becomes impossible, and I must have Y for my story, so therefore Y, right? I mean, therefore not X, or whatever. I confuse myself. But if it isn't necessary for the story, then you should get your facts straight. Am I right? If it isn't necessary for your story to get actual facts wrong, then you should get them right, especially when they're so basic as that nobody rides on the back of an elephant. It sounds actually kind of physically impossible. You ride on their necks, and he doesn't even bother to look up something basic like that. That actually disturbs me more than the whole concept here, where the elephant is taken away from her mother at a very young age, and then she's reared by humans exclusively, and travels in extremely unhealthy climes, a lot in Russia, for instance. And at the end of it, when we meet her, the main part of the book, she is a grown elephant, living with her keeper and traveling around Finland, and eventually, yeah, I'm not gonna say where she ends up eventually, that kind of ruined it, but if an elephant, and again, it's artistic license, whatever, but as an elephant lover, I kind of struggle with this, that if an elephant had been raised the way that this elephant, Emilia, is raised in this book, she would be severely disturbed. She would have mental illness on some level. She wouldn't function anywhere near as well as this Amelia does, this character. Because elephants, it makes them sick. It can make them physically ill, but it makes them mentally ill, certainly, to be kept apart from others of their species. They're extremely sociable, and while they can love interacting with humans and have very strong feelings for humans, we can never replace others of their own kind, which Paasilinna lets Lucia do in this book. But I can accept that because without that plot premise, the entire plot becomes impossible. And certainly he can write a comedic novel about a mentally ill, quite potentially dangerous elephant. You know, what kind of comedy would that bring? So I understand that he does that. That is a conceit that I can accept, because without it, the story doesn't work. But little things like that, with the writing on the back, that has nothing to do with the story. And getting that right would be very simple. And this, like I said, this is not the first time that I've come across something like this in Paasilinna's books. So he seems to me he's very creative and hardworking when it comes to creating the plots and the characters, which are often very entertaining. But he is lazy in research. I've noticed that this is like the fourth book of his, at least, that I've noticed that in. And yeah, that's one reason to make a book review of this book, because it is a good example. Arto Paasilinna is, I think he's a good writer, speaking in terms of having a good grasp of language. Although I can't really say that for sure because I can't read Finnish. I've only read him in Swedish and Norwegian. So take that with a pinch of salt, because that would depend a lot on his translators too, of course. But he's definitely a funny guy with a kooky imagination. He creates really engaging characters and very entertaining settings. So he's definitely an author that I recommend. This is not my favorite book of his. I read it again because I love elephants. It is not a convincing portrayal of an elephant by any stretch of the imagination. An elephant would not be happy living the life that this elephant lives. And yeah, he's a lazy researcher. But he is a good writer. I would definitely recommend The Year of the Hare, which I may review at some point. Arto Paasilinna, probably Finland's most famous author, maybe except Toby Jansson. A funny guy. Do better research, but overall, definitely worth reading. Unless you read Finnish or Swedish, you can't read this, but several others, very entertaining and well written, and hopefully well translated too.